Hello, and welcome to Ouchies Batrep. Kasserine Pass was a fantastic victory for U.S. Armored. Let's find out if those Jedis can pull another victory out against the Italians this time. I kid, of course. My opponent today was a fellow whose good graces and sportsmanship alone probably keep him highly ranked in the Nationals. He also served in the military, a tanker no less. So if you don't know the Kasserine Pass battle, go check it out. Or, to quote Rommel, courage which goes against military expediency is stupidity, or, if it is insisted by a commander, irresponsibility. Apropos, considering. My list in this battle consists of 2 AS-42 companies, a demolisher platoon complete with supply truck, light tanks, 90-53 batteries, howitzers, light mortars, light anti-aircraft, and a whole gaggle of hope because since this is no retreat, the units that have to go on the board are almost always going to be the ones that need to be dug in. So that leaves me with the AS-42 companies staying on board, one of them in ambush, and the other 90-53 battery, which I need to open up his tanks, also in ambush. Rolling out for his unit consists of some mounted infantry, a Sherman platoon, a recce platoon consisting of several Stuarts, some self-propelled guns, and a priest battery, ready to rain hell from distance. Sitting on board, open and willing to meet him, is only an AS-42 company and a demolisher platoon. It's already looking kinda grim. Already with his recce move, he's putting me in a pretty horrible position by rushing up right next to the infantry, nearly on the first turn. He's literally 8 inches away from the objective, and he's just an assault away from winning. That's just awful. He moves up with the recce group and the Stuarts and starts peppering the infantry out there, dug in but in the open, trying to soften them up just a little bit while hitting them with artillery as well. He doesn't accomplish a great deal, but it's the beginning of a very excellent maneuver on his own part as the U.S. armor begins charging into the fray. But as he has already destroyed some of the light field guns that I have out there ready to take him on, I'm forced to pop the 90-53 platoon just as far away as I can and start taking shots at those Stuarts. Round after round goes flying in, as well as calling in some air support to help soften them up. The Falcos don't seem to take anti-aircraft fire very well, and they're shot down, but the Stuarts don't weather the 90-53 battery anywhere near as well, and they eventually book it, deciding that this is something better to let the Shermans take care of. The infantry begin dismounting from their half-tracks in preparation for the assault on the town, while the tanks begin wheeling wide into the village center so that they can start peppering the buildings with machine gun fire and cannon rounds to soften up the assault. Meanwhile, the 2IC begins charging up the left side of the board, trying to gap the wire and come down towards the objective in the south. I actually don't even pay much of attention to him because I had completely forgotten in version 3 independent characters can claim objectives. He's going to become a serious issue in a few minutes. He also very rightly starts smoking the 90-53 with the priests, I do believe. Just like I said before, you can deny the other opponent a lot of value of his equipment if you just smoke anything that he can possibly see. And in this case, he did a wonderful job. It doesn't stop the Italian Fusilieri though. They pepper the U.S. armored as they dismount, but it doesn't really cause a whole lot of damage. That infantry save really saved them a number of times, and I just couldn't put enough damage down there. It's really my fault. The machine guns were all out of position for what they were about to do. After thoroughly hosing down the village center with machine gun fire, he begins the assault by first moving the Shermans up through the wire so that the wire actually serves as a barrier between me and him, so I can't send my infantry over there to actually take them on. The 2IC, meanwhile, gaps the wire and begins its charge towards the southern objective, while he smokes the 9053s to protect the Shermans and other light assets that they could otherwise completely destroy, and begins moving the Shermans and infantry right into the town center, where the AS-42, poorly equipped to deal with tanks, begin going muzzle to muzzle, gun to gun with them, and starts whiffing it horribly. After faring no better at all against the U.S. Armor Infantry, they decide that El Duce should come down here and take care of it himself, and promptly return to Italy, presumably. However, the game is promptly saved for Italy with a reserve roll, bringing the howitzers on just in front of the southern objective, thus denying the 2IC its ability to come over there and just take the objective uncontested, lest it find the weight of howitzers firing direct fire AT at it, which even the Sherman couldn't withstand, though it might as well be a Tiger tank compared to the rest of the Italian arsenal. Lo and behold, though, smoke ain't what it used to be. The Shermans managed to be just within 16 inches, and they start sailing a couple rounds from the 9053 into one of the poor Shermans over there, and he doesn't quite make it, completely destroying it immediately. They don't take it kindly, though, and start returning up the center of the board, prepping for an ambush across the wire and along the side. They open up with their guns, softening up the Demolisher platoon, because it's an armor company. You don't generally want to engage in close combat with an AT-4 group. Even though he smoked the only thing that could really hurt the Shermans at this point, he sits in the wire and continues to pepper the infantry that sits in front of them, dug in to almost no effect whatsoever. They fail to make the assault completely. Meanwhile, the light tanks begin rushing into the town, hoping to stand a chance against the Shermans, but toe-to-toe they're not going to really, so it's just a matter of splitting up his resources for the short term. The Demolisher platoon, already pinned, there's no real point in leaving them unpinned, so I go ahead and give them something to think about and start shelling them myself with some dangerous close artillery fire into the Shermans, hoping to potentially bail one or two of them. The howitzer fire has a good possibility to do it, even though in this case they don't, and thankfully they don't kill my own infantry either. 9053 battery smokes some recce groups that got a little too close, and wouldn't you know, the Fiats come out of the air and completely annihilates the self-propelled gun battery hiding behind the hill. You gotta hand it to those Italianos, they'll pull it through when they really need to. The fire on them now with the impetus to move, the Shermans gun the engines and begin clearing the wires into the Demolisher platoon. They've got to make their way into that platoon, or they're going to face themselves in an even worse situation with air support and artillery ranging in on them. So it's do or die at the center of the town. This fight will make the game. So the Demolishers begin moving into close combat with the tanks, and wouldn't you know it, it is a disaster for the Shermans. They bail one tank and completely destroy the 2IC and move back into their foxholes. Meanwhile, the Italians begin pulling in more reserves, with the light AA battery making an appearance onto the board. My opponent actually mentions to me very kindly that he's just going to destroy them, but I'm out for blood at this point, and I push him forward as far as I can while the tanks begin swinging wide to his flank in an attempt to go after the priest battery that, up until now, I haven't really had much of an opportunity to go after. They might not be able to stand toe-to-toe against the Shermans, but I guarantee you those tankettes will light up the priests. And wouldn't you know it, just like he said, the Shermans begin swinging around the town outside of the fortified position where the Demolishers are, and he just starts lighting up the anti-tank guns and small trucks left and right. Not a single one had a chance. The impetus is on him, though. It's coming in on turn 6, and he's got to be on my side of the board per the scenario rules, or he loses the game outright. So I continue pushing the tankettes as fast as they can towards the priests, so that he has to choose whether or not he has to go after the tankettes or continue on the objective. He's going to lose something one way or the other. It's a fairly safe strategic maneuver. So the cards are on the table. He realizes what's at stake now. It's do or die, so he begins moving the CIC right up the center and swings the remaining element of the Sherman platoon through the village walls right towards the remaining elements of the Demolisher platoon, hoping to get a nice little tank shock victory. But the CIC for the Fusilieri is there to take care of it, and they push back and absolutely annihilate those tanks. So Italy wins. Good job, team. It's hard to comment much on the game because he's played a good game and gave me some solid advice to boot, but I think the problem might have been not moving in faster. I was incredibly fragile early on, but then, as Rommel implied, he would have been charging tanks into an engineering platoon. That's not good no matter how you slice it. The maneuver of the light tanks proves the versatility of the L6 once again. It's a cheap tank. It's not a good tank either, but keep it in its role as a sort of harasser and moving machine gun, and it functions admirably. Once again, this has been an Ouchies Batrep, and thanks for watching.